Hello and welcome back to Worldbox. Today, I've got a little bit of a plan. So we have two lovely islands. We have this nice large island over here with plenty of beautiful trees, little fairies, and other wonderful things. And then down here, we have an island full of rocks, trees, and rhinos. Now, we're going to fill both of the islands full of wonderful humans. Doesn't really matter how many there are because they should be roughly the same. And we're going to see which team of humans does the best. This is going to span several decades of this world's age. So, let's get it going. I think all of my people got murdered by rhinos. We might have to take out some of the rhinos before we can let people settle there. Or, what we could do is just keep adding people and throw more people at the rhinos, and they'll get it taken care of. And whoever manages to survive, well, they're gonna survive. Okay. And this batch of wonderful people has actually managed to kill most of the rhinos. Just two more. I think there's just two more rhinos. Nope, there's more. There's at least three. But I think these people are going to be able to handle themselves from now on. Now, if we go back up to our wonderful village up here, we see that they have a couple of huts set down. We see that they are living wonderfully with the fairies. Everything is beautiful up here. We are going to go ahead and change their name to the Perfectly Willing Volunteers. There we go. So, our Perfectly Willing Volunteers are doing pretty well up here. Now, let's go see what the other people have. They have a campfire, and that looks to be about it. They still also have a couple of rhinos running around. Now, it does seem as though that my perfectly willing volunteers have actually... The island doesn't actually have very much in terms of natural resources other than trees, so let's go ahead and give them some gold, stone, and ore. It would look as though our southern people have eliminated all of the rhinos on the island, which is good. That is very good for them. Let's see how our kingdoms actually compare in population. So our perfectly willing volunteers have 27. These guys have a population of 14. Let's just go ahead and bump that up a little bit. There we go. Okay, and it's been a couple of minutes, so our southern tribe, let's go ahead and just rename them to the southern tribe. Our southern tribe is actually doing quite well. They have a bunch of houses built, they have a farm set up, everything is looking pretty nice. And pretty much the same thing with our perfectly willing volunteers. They have a bunch of houses, they have a farm set up, and they're living nicely with their little fairies. Now, it seems as though our southern tribe has its first army. I'm not entirely sure who they're gonna try and fight, seeing as they're alone on an island without boats or ships or anything, but, that's interesting. The perfectly willing volunteers do also have their own army, but again, they're alone on an island with no boats, so I'm not really sure what they're expecting here. It seems as though both the perfectly willing volunteers and the southern tribe are both working on boats. So I have a feeling that things are about to get very exciting. And would you look at that? A first little fishing boat. Aw, look at you. Seems as though the perfectly willing volunteers have their first actual ship. Let's see where this goes. And it looks like it might be headed... Nope. I think it just dropped somebody off on this island full of chickens. And it founded a colony here. Well, that's exciting. So the perfectly willing volunteers have now expanded their territory. They now have an island completely full of chickens. There's another island up here that is completely covered in rhinos. I kind of just want to see if the Southern Tribe can actually take out all of these rhinos, because it's a lot. So, I think we're just gonna have to do that. Just the teeniest, tiniest little amount that they can cross over on. And here come some of the rhinos. It seems as though the rhinos are winning quite badly at the moment. They have an army. I don't understand why they're not using it against the rhinos. But they have repelled most of the... Oh, here comes the army, I think? Maybe? I'm afraid that I may have just killed most of the population by getting them to attack the rhinos. It's not as bad as it seems. It's not good, but there's a bunch of rhinos on the loose. They've killed a decent amount of rhinos. But unfortunately, I think that we may just have to, eliminate some of them. Okay, now we should be good. And then we'll let those fires go out. And now we can just let nature take its course. And of course now, the Southern Tribe brings in their army. Either I missed a bunch of the rhinos, or they all came back. We're gonna have to use more napalm. Might kill some of the humans in the process, but we're trying to take out all the rhinos. There we go. I think we're good now. I think we're good now. Okay, time to, fix this. And in the time that happened, our perfectly willing volunteers have settled on this island in the south. Would you look at that? The perfectly willing volunteers are truly the best, as they have windmills. And not just one, but 2 windmills. How exciting. Now that it's been a few years, and we have pretty much fully colonized the map, except for this one island that is just completely full of monkeys. Now that everything is pretty much fully settled, I think it's about time to see who's better. Is it the perfectly willing volunteers, or is it the Southern Tribe, who is now technically more northern than the perfectly willing volunteers? It's time to sprinkle in some spite. And here we go. We have, well, the perfectly willing volunteers landed an army on this island up here. Now 2 armies, and they're slowly attacking things. They're not really doing too much, though. Alright, and there we go. The perfectly willing volunteers have now landed quite a few troops onto this island. And now they actually just took it over. It is now perfectly willing volunteer territory. Okay, I guess that's all that it takes to take land in this game. Alright, and it seems as though the perfectly willing volunteers have now landed an army on the northernmost part of this island. There's a little bit of fighting going on, but not too terribly much. The perfectly willing volunteers are trying to go for their main island. That's not working out so well for them. There is a small force of perfectly willing volunteers that they just dropped off. They're probably not going to survive this. The perfectly willing volunteers are currently occupying and now taking over their central island. The perfectly willing volunteers now have the majority of the land. Uh, are they going to be able to take over the rest of the land in this world? Only time's gonna tell. One thing seems to be certain, though, is that nobody wants to go to Monkey Island. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. Alright, the perfectly willing volunteers have landed a pretty decent-sized army on this main island of the Southern Tribe. The Southern Tribe have landed what looks to be 2 people on this northern island. I don't think that it's going to go very well for them. A couple of demons have tried attacking the Monkey Island. They're probably going to take it over, but it's not going to be easy with all of these monkeys. One of them is actually even dead. This one might die as... Oh, okay. The demons failed to successfully take over Monkey Island. That's a little bit embarrassing. Alright, and it looks as though the perfectly willing volunteers have finally done it. They have finally taken the last remaining amount of land in the world. The perfectly willing volunteers have achieved world domination. This is wonderful. Now then, it's about time that we get to the final phase of this, which is to see whether or not our perfectly willing volunteers can survive a true destructive force of nature. We're talking about Crabzilla. Crabzilla is a wonderfully festive crab who happens to be able to shoot laser beams out of his arms, and who also happens to be able to crush everything with his massive crab body and shoot lasers out of his arms. It's incredible. Will the perfectly willing volunteers survive? The answer is no. It's not gonna happen. Yes, it's finally happening. We get to completely destroy the perfectly willing volunteers and everything that they built. Look at that gigantic army of perfectly willing volunteers. And it's gone. I don't know why this is so much fun to just destroy everything, but I spent a couple hours watching. But it is. It's very satisfying. We have one last settlement of perfectly willing volunteers. And it's gone. We have a couple of small resistances of about 3 people up here. We gotta make sure that we get every last one. This fishing boat can't survive. Absolutely nothing will survive the Crabzilla with his mighty Santa hat. And with a final explosion, Crabzilla is gone. I suppose there are a couple of leftover people. That's not gonna stand. There we go, that should do it. Bye-bye, Rhinos. Bye-bye. And with only ruins left over, there is only one thing left that has survived. That would be the island of monkeys. The island of monkeys will never be tamed. It will never be destroyed. The island of monkeys will live on forever.